Okay, I think we are live here. Give me just a second. Okay, I think we are live here. Give me just a second. All right, let's give everyone a second to kind of filter in here as it's not quite 3 o'clock yet. And if you are watching, please feel free to share this, retweet this, post this on Facebook, whatever your form of social media is. Feel free to kind of do that so we can get as many viewers in here as we can here into the next minute or so before we start going. And so we are going to be talking about the severe weather across portions of the Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley. I do want to emphasize we are not going to be talking about snowfall today. We're not going to be focusing on the snow up across portions of the Central Plains or the Upper Midwest or the Great Lakes region. I will say there's going to be areas that get 8 to 12 inches of snow, and we're going to leave it at that up there. But I think for us, it's going to be much more of a bigger concern with the severe weather as we work into the evening and overnight hours tonight. So let's start off here. So what you're looking at now, what we've got up obviously is radar, but the blue box or that blue area down there, that is a current mesoscale discussion that has been outlined from the Storm Prediction Center. And I can kind of click on that and bring it up. We won't really take the time to read it. But basically there's a 95% chance of a watch issuance of some sort down there. This shows up blue, which means severe thunderstorm, but I would tend to say this is probably going to be a tornado watch, as they are expecting the development of discrete supercells becoming probable by 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, and those are going to be accompanied by hail and the possibility of tornadoes and maybe even a couple strong tornadoes. You can see rainfall is lifting across portions of the Ohio Valley here this afternoon, and that is along the warm front that is lifting northward as well. In fact, if we take a look at the current temperatures across the area, you can see, we're at like 51 in Lincoln, but you can see we're at 70 degrees in Cape Girardeau. So that's a very strong temperature gradient there. So taking a look at the severe weather risk for today, let me bring this up here. Here's the severe weather risk for today. You can see we have a moderate risk that is in place across southern portions of Illinois. It is down in place across like southwestern Boise County into Indiana, very western Kentucky, very western Tennessee, northeastern portions of Arkansas, and kind of southeastern portions of Missouri down into the Boot Hill. This does not encompass St. Louis, but it is just south of St. Louis. So we have a moderate risk there. You can see the enhanced risk that extends all the way down to the southeastern portions of Arkansas, northwestern portions of Mississippi, and then goes up through Nashville, Louisville. It encompasses places like Indianapolis, Muncie, then back out towards Bloomington, Illinois, down towards St. Louis, so Lincoln and Springfield and Effingham. You guys are into that enhanced risk, and then we have the slight risk that extends all the way up towards the I-80 area in Illinois, and then back up into northern Indiana, and then western portions of Ohio, including Cincinnati, Columbus, back out towards Dayton, and it does include Toledo. And so that's the risks for today. As far as the enhanced, you can see here is this is the damaging wind risk. You can see there's a widespread area, 30% chance probability of damaging winds. If we take a look at the hail risk here, you can see smaller hail risk, about a 15% chance in some of the highest areas out there across portions of Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas. But the big concern here today is indeed the tornado risk. You can see there is a 15% large hatched area, but the 15%, which is the red area, into southern Illinois, down into southeastern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, western portions of Kentucky and Tennessee. And then there is the 10% hatched area that extends up into St. Louis, then back up to the north towards Urbana-Champaign, and then back out towards western and southwestern Indiana, so Bloomington, Indiana, Nashville, Indiana, down towards towards Evansville, Vincennes, Terre Haute. You guys are in that area. Indianapolis, not quite in that area, but with that being said, it's like half a county away. And then that extends down into Nashville, Tennessee. You get down into northern portions of Mississippi, out towards Little Rock, and then back into St. Louis. You guys are included in that 10% hatched. And then you can see the 5% in kind of that brown tan area that extends out from that does include Indianapolis and Cincinnati and Fort Wayne, back out towards Peoria and Bloomington. And so the tornado risk is a concern. That area where you kind of see what is shown as kind of the hatched area is what we call it. That stands for significant tornadoes. So there is the probability, or at least the possibility, that some of these tornadoes in that area could become strong this evening into tonight. That meaning EF2 or greater ratings with these tornadoes. And that's not all of these obviously will be that, but there is the possibility for a couple or a few of these to become strong as cells develop here into the late afternoon, mainly evening and overnight across the area. So going on over, we'll first talk about, let's take a look at the forecast radar. So this is the latest HRRR data. This is 18Z HRRR data. A couple things you're going to see. So this is simulated radar. You may start to see some like little black areas trailing some of these cells. Those are updraft helicity swaths. We're not going to focus too much on that. But so as we work on into the next few hours, and we're going to keep things in Eastern time just to keep it simple, so we're not switching back and forth in times. So this is as we start to work on into 6. Going into, actually I'm going to back it up. So by 5 o'clock, so this is 5 p.m. this evening, if I can get this to stay in one place, you can see we are starting to see some cells out here developing. Forecasts per the HRRR into central and south central portions of Missouri down into Arkansas. We've got this rainfall that's pushing up across Illinois into central Indiana. This is going to be associated with the warm front out here across the Ohio Valley. It's going to be this activity out here into the Ozarks, into the Mississippi Valley initially, that we are concerned about. And then as we continue on into 6 and 7 o'clock, you can start to see more cells developing out here into southern Illinois. We've got some out here closer to the area of low pressure and cold front across northern portions of Missouri, and then extending down kind of right along the Tennessee River, or excuse me, the Mississippi River, down into Memphis, and then back out into portions of Arkansas, into those areas. So you can see some of those individual cells showing up, some of these becoming pretty impressive. And then as we continue into 8 and 9 o'clock, notice we've got some of these cells extending on into Indiana at this point. So as we continue into the evening towards 8, 9, 10 o'clock here, we're seeing the possibility of some severe weather into Indiana ramping up. We're seeing severe weather out into western Illinois. It's interesting, you can kind of see some of these more discrete cells out here as well. And we are seeing discrete cells all the way down here into portions of Missouri and Arkansas, which is really not what you want to see, because your tornado potential goes up when you're talking about individual discrete cells, as opposed to linear storms or big lines of storms, which we'll probably see later on into the evening. So as we continue to work this into 10 and 11 o'clock, you can continue to see, now you're starting to see these updraft helicity tracks here, some of these kind of black outlined areas with some of these storms, indicating they are rotating and they are very strong. So you can see some of this even working up into, places south of I-80 into northern Illinois up towards like Bloomington, Kankakee. But you're still seeing some of these storms working in overnight as we work into 11 o'clock and midnight out towards Indiana, Ohio, back down across Kentucky, Missouri, the Boot Hill, and then still down into Arkansas. And then we continue into midnight and 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You can still see these thunderstorms rolling on through the region. We do start to see a little bit more of a linear mode as we work into the early morning hours tomorrow before the cold front moves out. So, as we start to work on into, as in places down across Missouri and Arkansas as early as maybe 4 to 6 p.m., but then especially the rest of the region as we tick on into the overnight, or the evening and overnight, and towards like 8, 9, 10 o'clock. That's when activity is really going to get started. The concerning thing with this becomes this is a nocturnal event. It's overnight. And when you're talking about the possibility for tornadoes and strong tornadoes, that's a serious concern, because obviously people can't see them. They're asleep. So if you are, in this area, in this threat area, I would highly advise have a way to receive warnings tonight, whether that's an app on your phone, or a lot of phones will now send tornado warnings. But the NOAA weather radio is a great way to get that. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. We can dive into some of the dynamics of this. And the first thing I'm going to show you here, this is all current, what I'm getting ready to show you. This is the 850 millibar jet. This is current. This is not a forecast. This is current. And, you know, when I'm looking at 850 millibars for severe weather, I'm starting to look at like 35 to 40 knots and greater, because that's kind of a low end threshold of where we look for severe weather with the wind. And if we look out here, I mean, we've got 35 knots already pushing into western portions of Indiana and into Illinois. And if you look out southeast of Kansas City, I mean, we've got an 850 millibar jet streak of 50 to 60 knots. That's incredible. I mean, that's an absolutely incredibly strong low-level jet. Not uncommon. I won't say uncommon, but it's not that uncommon when you have these kind of setups in the winter, because you have a much stronger jet stream in the winter a lot of times, even at the low levels, than you do at the upper levels. But you can see we have a very strong low-level jet. And then if we go higher aloft and go to 500 millibars, we still have a very strong 500 millibar jet that's coming into kind of southeastern and eastern portions of Kansas into northern Oklahoma. You can see that's where we have our highest winds, and that's kind of where the streak is. But there in the streak alone, I mean, you've got 100 knot winds at 500 millibars, and if you extend out into, you know, portions of Missouri, you can see the flag, which is 50, and then each one of these longer pips, or whatever you want to call them, there are 10 knots. So you've got like 95 knot winds at 500 millibar coming over the top of these 850 millibar winds that are blowing 50 to 60 knots. So what that's doing is it's creating an incredible amount of wind shear. And if we take a look at bulk shear, this basically represents the change in wind speed with height. And just to give you an idea, bulk shear, once you start to get up towards like, especially like 40 knots of bulk shear, that's a pretty good amount. And once you start to work over that, you're starting to talk about the potential for supercells. Well, you're looking at 90 knots of bulk shear out across portions of Missouri, southern Iowa into Illinois right now. And all of us are like 70 to 90 knots across pretty much the entirety of the region because of the strong winds we have in place. And you factor that in with the instability that's building. I mean, we've got 500 joules per kilogram of ML CAPE, or mixed layer CAPE, extending into northern Illinois. For me, that was going to kind of be the question mark for this system was, you know, here across Indiana and into Illinois, we've been dealing with fog this morning, and then we still have clouds this afternoon. So I was like, it's almost mid-December. Are we really going to get a lot of instability into portions of southern Illinois, southern Indiana that's really going to support this? Obviously, we're going to have it to the south. It's already there, but it's going to continue to push on off to the north and northeast too. So I do think we're going to get, you know, this time of year, you only need a little bit of instability. When we're talking about 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, that's a lot of instability for December. That's the kind of instability, I mean, we can have in like March and April and it be enough to support severe weather. But in December, it's really some incredible values out there. And this is current, and forecast is calling for 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram to stretch into southern Illinois, southwestern Indiana. If we take a look at the current supercell composite, you can see that is increasing down across the Mississippi River Valley and into the Tennessee Valley, also back out into northeastern Oklahoma. So we do start to see the probability of severe weather increasing there across that area. I'm going to bring this back up just to make sure we don't have any watches issued yet. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And overall, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics with this, especially as far as kinematics and wind dynamics that are just really impressive with the severe weather aspect of things. Now, one thing I'm going to show you here, I'm going to back this up and just randomly click on this and try to get a photograph and see if I can generate something decent. So we want to go out in front of these storms. So I'm going to go down into southwestern Indiana and take a look at this. This actually isn't too bad with the rotation at low levels. I wanted to show you guys something. Let's go down here. I'm going to try to find a decent one to show you because I got something I want to show you. So there we go. So this is basically what we call a skew-T log P in a hodograph, a skew-T over here, hodograph over here. And one thing that I'm seeing with this is, so if you imagine the hodograph, what this is showing is winds aloft and how they're kind of changing as you go up through the atmosphere at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kilometers. This one, there's to 6 kilometers. The first 3 kilometers being the most important because that's lower level. What generally you like to see out here with this, and I'm going to pull up a drawing tool here, is there we go. So what you generally like to see with this is, for me, I like to see this come out just a little bit more and turn at the lower levels because it shows me that you're starting to see winds turning and you're getting more of a spin with height from the turning winds being from, southeast at surface, south, southwest at 850, more westerly at 500, etc., etc. With this, you're not seeing as much turning. Now, with that being said, because you have those crazy shear values of 90 knots, those bulk shear values, I'm not sure it's going to matter much. So, overall, I definitely think the tornado threat this evening is very, very real, especially across the moderate, the 15 and 20% risks out here. So if you're in those areas, you definitely need to be taking precautions here as we continue on into the evening and overnight hours tonight, because those winds are really going to help rotation, because you have two different types of shear. You have wind shear, you have normal, you have directional shear and speed shear. Directional shear has to do with the orientation of the winds and how it's turning the environment. Speed shear actually has to do with the winds becoming stronger as you go up with height, which actually rotates the environment because you're slower as you go lower. And so you start to create this column of rotating air, basically, or of spin into the environment. And we have tons of speed shear and a little bit of directional shear. So that's kind of what we're looking at here into the evening hours and overnight tonight. Definitely, like I said, have a way to receive warnings, NOAA weather radio, an app that will alert you to your location, that kind of things, because there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be going to bed and are still going to be going through or getting ready to go through severe weather across the Mississippi and Ohio Valley. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I know we only have a few people still watching at this point. But I wanted to see, I am looking at the chat here, so I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions that I could answer. If not, I can, kind of move on. I don't know if there's really anything else I wanted to show. I'm not really going to get into too much of the forecast data, just because we could sit here all day and go through theoretical, if this happens, if that happens, if this doesn't happen. And I don't really want to do that. I just wanted to bring everyone kind of a quick update on what we're seeing and what we're expecting here. So not seeing any questions into the chat. Guys, make sure to follow us if you are not already on Twitter and Facebook. If you're not following us on Twitter, I'll pull this up. And you can follow us on Twitter, and that is at TDSWX. We'll be posting information there as we work on through the evening on into at least, the late evening hours tonight. Don't just go to us and expect us to be posting every watch and every warning, because they may become too numerous. But that we do have a lot of information on here that we post regarding severe weather as we go in through, that in through the day and closer to that time frame. So you can follow us there. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us. We do some stuff on Instagram, but we don't post a whole lot on there. Twitter is definitely the best way to keep in touch with us and some of the things that we're seeing. So unless anybody has questions, I think I'm just going to kind of end it there. You can feel free to, again, share this. People can go back and watch this video if they want to, and kind of see, kind of go over the things that we've gone over and look at things. So anyways, that's all I have for you here this afternoon. If you're in this risk area here, into the moderate risk or into the enhanced risk, definitely stay safe this evening, guys. Have your severe weather readiness plan in place, and stay safe. Everybody, thanks for logging on. Have a great weekend.